Dearly beloved, we have gathered here today to get through this thing called Mix CD. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I love making Mix CDs. Each week, we give our guests a theme and an 80-minute time limit for which songs they're going to pick for their Mix CD. This week, I am paying tribute to one of Chicagoland's, you know, classic radio stations, Q101. This is a radio station in Chicago that was instrumental in introducing me to alternative, to hard rock, to I would say new metal, new age stuff, and just kind of combination of a lot of different types of music that at the time I really wasn't listening to because I had my mom and my sister with me, and we were listening to pop and softer songs. So Q101 was instrumental in introducing kind of just a whole other genre and a whole other side of music that I was just not prepared to. I was just not prepared to embrace that as part of my musical journey. So Q101 was a radio station in the 90s, at least in its form back in the day. So in the 90s, early 2000s, that would play a lot of, just harder music that you probably wouldn't find on some of the more pop radio stations in the general Chicagoland area. Q101 was also famous for bringing us Man Cow, which it was kind of like a discount Howard Stern for, shock jocks. So that was just another aspect of Q101 that just made it so much fun to listen to. I never got away with listening to Q101 when my mom was driving, so I would have to, ride with friends, or this it would be something that, between friends that could drive and then eventually when I could drive, Q101 was just one of those stations that you cycled through in order to make sure that you're being well-rounded with your music. Over the years, Q101 has gone through a lot of changes, a lot of iterations. Current form of Q101 is probably closer to what I remember it in the 90s. So I'm thankful for that. But a lot of the radio stations around the general Chicagoland area have changed quite a bit. So this will probably be the first of many instances where I pay tribute to certain radio stations in the general Chicagoland area. But for Q101, songs that I remember, these songs getting played a ton on Q101, or maybe not a ton, but also particularly the bands. And the first one I got to start with is Nirvana. I picked Smells Like Teen Spirit, but easily any Nirvana song, any just grunge in general, probably you could just comprise a whole list of grunge songs here with that. So the next one I have Green Day, pretty standard on here. I picked Brain Stew as the one that probably I heard the most, probably not far behind most of the songs that came out of Dookie and then Nimrod. But those were Brain Stew is the one that just, I don't know, just comes to mind the most for me. Followed next, Blink 182. Enema of the State was the big one that where Blink 182 went full scale pop punk, but I picked Damn It, which is from Dude Ranch, as the one that I chose for that. Rage Against the Machine made numerous appearances on Q101. I just picked Killing in the Name of, even though whether it's Guerrilla Radio or Bulls on Parade, Rage Against the Machine ended up on Q101 quite a bit. A couple newer additions to Q101 in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, but definitely early 2000s. I picked Down with the Sickness by Disturbed and then Chop Suey by System of a Down. Those were two that were played pretty frequently. And I also picked Last Resort by Papa Roach. This song got played a lot on Q101. The Foo Fighter song was a little tricky. I tried to figure out which song would probably represent Q101 the best. I picked My Hero, even though Foo Fighters were a little bit on the softer end. I also picked My Hero for Time. Everlong probably would have been, the primary pick here, but I don't think, and I think it just takes too long. The Offspring come out and play a lot of their older stuff. Will get a lot of play on Q101 between this, Self Esteem, Gone Away, even into your, songs like, oh, I don't know, You're Pretty Fly for a White Guy, Why Don't You Get a Job? Kids Aren't All Right, different things like that. Want You Bad as well, but Come Out and Play I remember the first time I listened to this song was on Q101. Red Hot Chili Peppers Under the Bridge would frequently make an appearance on it. Like, I like that song just fine, but I picked the other side by Red Hot Chili Peppers from their Californication album. Bush, I picked Come Down for Bush because they did have some softer or not like as hardcore as some of the other songs that will kind of end up on my list a little bit later. But Bush, Come Down, Father of Mine by Everclear, and Collective Souls December. Those were songs that I know I listened to pretty frequently on Q101, but those were the ones that I wouldn't flat out say it's like, what are you doing here? But it's like you're on the fringes at best. Then I've got Corn, Got the Life. This kind of would be in that similar vein as You're Down with the Sickness, Chop Suey, even Papa Roach to some extent or another. And then I also have Metallica. I'm not a huge Metallica fan, but I know Metallica ended up on here quite a bit. But I picked Fuel for that. And speaking of Fuel, I picked the band Fuel. Hemorrhage in My Hand was something that came up quite a bit. Linkin Park was very popular in the 2000s on Q101, and I picked In the End because that song was inescapable. Inescapable. I had to throw a Nickelback song on there because, Nickelback in the early 2000s was huge, and I picked How You Remind Me, which I feel like that was the song that like introduced everyone to Nickelback, even though they had a couple albums before that. I picked Silverchair, Anna's song. Anthem on the Year 2000, or some of their older stuff might be maybe a better choice, but Anna's song is maybe more of a sentimental choice. And then I picked Jimmy Eat World's The Middle. As for the album cover, it'd probably be the old school logo of Q101 on there, or a picture of Mancow, or just like an old school like radio dial on like my old car with Q101 on there. So, but yeah, what's anybody out there who listened to Q101, shout out some of those songs and, represent, I suppose. Well, my friends, the time has come to end this episode of Mix CD. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website soon to be out at spdmcrew.com. You can follow our playlist on Spotify and Apple Music at Mike Hilty. Shout out to HiFlyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you have any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at HiFlyerCreative.com. If you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, no matter what happens now, you shouldn't be afraid because I know today has been the most perfect day I've ever seen.